Good afternoon, dear colleagues. And we all know each other. I'm very happy to see you all. I suggest that we should start our work now. I think that due to taking some new decisions and resolutions, more people will have more questions. Let me first introduce myself. I'm Igor Bukharov. I'm chairman of the Federation of Restaurateurs and Hoteliers, and I will be moderating this session. Let me introduce Mr. Ushanov. He represents the Expert Council on Professional Qualifications in Hospitality, and he's responsible for our interaction with other sectors, because there are many intermediate and joint standards. We should share them with other sectors, and this is quite an important area of our activity, and it's always a big problem. We need to gather people and to take some joint decisions. Let me introduce now Sergey Mironov. He is a famous restaurant owner and developer. We have been acquainted for about 15 years, but for me he is still a young entrepreneur. He is Ildar Mussin. He represents Sputnik Sport and Business Travel. He's a president. He's responsible for shows and different sports events. And here's Pavel Chernykh, representing the National Council on Professional Qualifications. And we also have Marianna Korolyova from Premier Deal Hospitality, and Ivanna Tabachnikova, representing the Expert Council on Professional Qualifications in Hospitality. We have a very tough schedule, and the time frames is 15 minutes for each speaker. I realize that there are many people who are willing to speak up, but if there's no time, please submit your questions via email or social networks. Now let me give the floor to Igor. Microphone, please. Good afternoon, colleagues. As compared to the last year, we have seen many events. The law on independent assessment of qualifications has been taken, and many sub-laws that are relevant for this issue, they target implementation of the key law. So the government is continually issuing other documents as a follow-up to the main law. And now the councils on professional qualifications start dealing with assessment of professional standards, and they try to assess personnel with regard to their compliance to professional standards. And indeed, this is a big problem. Original educational problems do not consider many professional standards. They even use different types of terminology. The second discovery was that we don't have a real assessment tool set to assess graduates of higher and secondary educational institutions. So we don't really have a common toolbox, and we can't change it. This was a big discovery, both for our sector and for educational institutions, including Russia's Ministry of Education. They realized that the current system should change their approach to specialist training. At some point, mid this year, the leaders of educational institutions initiated to introduce a common system. And the director of Moscow University declared that probably Bologna process did not suit our goals here. And the same idea was discussed last year during the meeting of the educational sector representatives, because currently there's no compliance between educational programs and current professional standards. And this breeds lots of problems in assessment of personnel and assessment of graduates. Right now, we are discussing that with the representatives of educational institutions. We were first to detect the problem, and in the initial stage, they viewed us as their enemies. However, we are no longer enemies. Mr. Sobolev, for instance, initially he thought we were enemies and nasty people, but now we are trying to collaborate. And second, let me mention one big task that we have completed. Now, many professional standards indeed are there are many professional standards that are shared with other sectors, and they are related to other councils on professional qualification. For instance, there are we have some common standards with the healthcare sector, with agriculture, and some other. There's one doubtful standard. It's related to the so-called agrarian tourism. And right now, we are not sure how to separate our standard from their standard. I spoke recently to the developer of this standard, and I realized that we have different approaches. Their approach is rather scientific, and it was initiated by researchers, not by employers. It is wrong, in my view. This problem, however, has been resolved. The second innovation, and we have done it, and I think that this subject is now actively discussed. We have now started assessing different events against this score system. There are similar systems in healthcare and other sector. We are not number one. For instance, the score-based assessment system in healthcare has been tested several times, and now they will adjust it to their needs. In principle, people are quite positive about this score system. And for instance, recently I spoke to the Association of Barmen in Russia, and they acknowledge this system of scores, and they realize that they will have to work with it in future. This is, in brief, all I meant to say. This was a brief introduction, and now I give the floor to my colleagues. Mr. Chernykh, the floor is yours. Thanks a lot, Igor. I think my role here is quite interesting. I launched the movement of wall skills, and now it's integrated into Russian national system of competences and skills. I hope it will complement the methodology, and this is a good supplement to our methodologies. I started with regional standards, and some time ago I noted that current laws did not consider the role of regions in the assessment of qualifications on the national level. The main so-called reprimanding authority in this area was labor inspectors and other supervisors. Those were people who scared all, including educational institutions. But now I think we have established a very good contact with the hospitality sector and hospitality institutions, both in Moscow and in other Russian regions. For instance, in the northwest. In March, we started a dialogue with several parties like restaurant owners, hotel entrepreneurs, several NGOs like Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs. And in the first stage, no one could hear others. Everyone was only trying to publish their ideas, and they didn't want to listen to others. But I suggested that they should read publications of their colleagues. For instance, it could be a very brief text of 10 pages only, or the labor code, the chapters related to restaurants and other hospitality institutions. There were some rumors among educationalists too, but no one considered views of other sides. Now, however, they're trying to consider what other people say. And yes, at the initial stage, there were many terrible rumors, and people were gossiping. There were many controversies and conflicts. Even last year's summer, there were many myths related to qualification, and so, the whole sector was in a mess because some institution issued a certificate, some other institutions were responsible for standards, and so on. We decided to initiate multilateral negotiations and to settle all problems together, to develop some unified standards and approaches. Besides, the whole story was complicated by sanctions imposed on Russia by Western countries. However, the number of tourists has increased recently, and that meant a bigger loading on hotels and cooks and chefs, for instance, while some cooks were unable to cook dishes of some particular required cuisines. So the representatives of Russia's Northwest decided to regulate this sector and to establish some unified rules for restaurant and hotel owners. Besides, we had many informal talks over a glass of wine. In this situation, you can always achieve some understanding. normally, the Council on Professional Qualifications is associated to some federation, like the Federation of Restaurateurs and Hoteliers. And there's a branch of this federation in northwest. And the first step was to establish qualification assessment centers. The Russian abbreviation is TSOCs. And this is a very responsible organization. They're not supposed to just to assess people and to deliver professional exams. Moreover, they are supposed to issue certificates to assess and certify personnel to verify whether they really have relevant experience, to develop all assessment tools, including theoretical and practical examination materials. Moreover, they should create archives of certificates and other documents and store them for long. For instance, some of them should keep over 1,200,000 personal files of hotel specialists or hospitality specialists, and that's why they need very big premises, because not all documents have been digitalized. Now they mainly act as a coordinator, coordinating relevant professional activities in a particular region, for instance, Northwest, like in our case. And of course, they shouldn't act as crooks, selling some certificates to the population. They, of course, should work honestly. However, they are supposed to pay experts, and sometimes they need to procure equipment, which also costs. Now we are fully in the picture, and we can make some budget. Besides, the number of examiners should be at least 3 people. So it means that we should all unite our efforts and do this work jointly. These assessment centers should incorporate representatives of different institutions. But what should be the key institution here? I think it should be some NGO. And in our case, I mean in Northwest, it should be our Federation of Hotel and Restaurant Owners. But first, we should gather qualified experts and assess them first. I think this is very complicated, time and money-consuming work. We need first to gather people, and but now I can tell you about what we have done and what people we found. One positive thing was that St. Petersburg is located close to Europe, and we could apply best practice.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's the problem we've been talking about. Which is comes the first, the hen or the eggs? Who writes the assessment the assessment things which will be used to make assessments? Some of the scoring system implies how can you attract people if you do not have material resources to attract people and to get satisfaction with his work and get some preferences. So the scoring system, the motivation, so you got some scoring after your work. And these scores could be taken into account when you are passing your exams. This is important for experts ratings. It is the people who should do evaluations afterwards, and they should keep fit all the time. So that forces people to be active. Before giving the floor to other speakers, let me tell you that there comes a time when you ask, who needs it and who will do it? I keep saying that there will be a person who is a good griller, who makes a perfect grill, and he will not make a career. He will keep working grilling the meat. It will not affect his payment. Either he get payment by the owner or he will become the owner. But he will keep satisfying his owner. He will be satisfied or with his salary. He could have minimum desirement, so to say, but he'll be successful and happy. So we should push people to get knowledge and build their own career. Marianna Korolyova, our close friend, who is a serious a person who seriously criticizes us. It's very important to have a person like this next to you. Thank you, Igor. A lot has been said about legislation. Let me, since I wear the name of the critic, let me describe some hysterics that take place in our regions. Krasnodarsky Krai, Crimea, Tatarstan, Nizhny Novgorod Oblast, all of them are overexcited. I mean, the educational institutions. And all of them are waiting. They want to be centrals for evaluation, and everybody wants to evaluate everything because everybody believes that it means a lot of money. You will become a millionaire in no time. But as far as I understand, the laws on methodology, on the organization of centers, they're non-existent so far. That's one thing. No, I speak of legislation is going to be out. One thing is to have 580 institutes who have chairs of hospitality and tourism, etc. These are only state institutions, but there are micro institutes who got licenses for education in hospitality. There are millions of them. So if this process is not tuned for only one entry point to make assessments, we'll get a mess. And I'm sure that last year, many shadow centers have been established. So the train has started moving and everybody calls itself a center for evaluation, for assessing qualifications. On the other hand, we should understand that I'm speaking about hotels business. There are about 200,000 accommodation means, plus two more, probably 22. Just think how many people altogether are employed in this sphere. How much did we get? About 5 million, working only in hotels. 22,000 less. It is less. Well, let me exaggerate a bit. Not all of them Russians. So we speak about 22,000 heads of hotels for whom the standard of head of hotel have already been adopted. So the people work for the owner and they're shocked because the standard says the necessity to have professional education. So I can teach, but I cannot work because I did not graduate from the tourism faculty or tourism chair. So what should they do? To get a fake diploma, to get a retraining at the age of 40 or 45, and to get a third education? There is no answer to this. Last year, we raised this issue several times, and probably, if we have time, we shall continue this process to change the professional standards for the chief of the hotel, for the head of the hotel, to get rid of this requirement of professional education. Marianna, we know about this, and the National Council knows it, and they understand that some people did not get the education, such education. And the question is, if he has some education, he goes to the center for assessment of qualifications, he passes the exam, and there is no problem. This is for the future generations. And we are saying that the hospitality industry consists of people who are self-educated. If a person does not have professional education, he can come to the center, take exam or pass exam, and get the diploma. There should be information through mass media about this, because what we see in professional publications, this law on professional education is mistreated sometimes. You feel like shouting, "Stop hysterics," it's all wrong. But still, some people find it useful, and there's a lot of panic in the industry. Not everybody knows that where information can be found, that it can be found on free website, that is the Federal Council for Qualifications, Professional Qualifications. Last year, at every session, at every meeting, these questions were raised. At least you know that people know about it. As for the scoring, it's great. Collecting scores, it's okay. But where shall we get the methodology for this? So it was last year that I raised this question and raised a lot of panic. Thank you very much, colleagues, for this. Colleagues, let me add something. The events that we are going to hold this year will include mass media. We shall assess mass media. We shall give scores to the publications, to professional publications, which will not just gossip, but will be professional. That's the next stage. So we invite you to come there to work. We always invite you. But you somehow, you're always on mission elsewhere. Ildar, please. Good evening. I understood that now we're in the year 17. Back in 1980, I came to Tourist Society in Tourist. It was a huge structure which united tourism, hotels. We had a transport division, advertising sector. It was a huge enterprise which served the domestic and the foreign flows of tourists. We had our training institutions, educational institutions. We had guides, around guides, 1,500 guides only in Moscow. And at a certain moment of time, it was split. The industry was split. Everybody became independent, and I stayed in the Ministry of Tourism then. And now, Igor, as Igor said, it is hospitality sector, which unites different ministries. restaurants are in one under one ministry, trade and hotels and museums are elsewhere. So they're all dissociated. Ministry of Transport does something else. And it's very difficult to put everything together into one hospitality industry. It takes a lot of time. My 30 years of work, nevertheless, I learn something new every day. Back in 1986, I came to the sector of technology and automation. We developed programs, and the technology of automation issued documents. We're speaking about standards now. It was like orders, ministry orders, description of technologies, and all of us employed only 10 people. We issued huge documents. We issued a description of duties. So it would take several hundred shelves to hold all these documents. That's what we are just starting to do at the state level. What is the job instruction? If you know about the organizational structures, what does it contain? It's a man with his competences and skills. And in tourism, for instance, every tourist company had a training center. In tourists also had their own training center. They trained their own workers and tourist agents. Those were different people, not coming from the industry. They issued them a document entitled certificate. Some issued diplomas that the person has knowledge and competences to work in the industry. And every organization had their standards, which were not united. What we are trying to do now is standardization. We're speaking about classifications, but we left out standardization because millions of cooks, we have about 1 million cooks, and all cooks, some do Russian cuisine, Chinese cuisine, or Caucasian cuisine, but originally the cook cuts, peels, boils water, fulfills some standard technological processes, like in the hotel business, housekeeping processes which are standardized. And when we started to look at this process, at these processes in the industry framework, it turned out that everything could be classified, pigeonholed, and with rare exceptions, in many companies, this is used to this or that extent. Some use it more. People can add some other things in addition to standards. But these are sort of oscillations. Most cooks out of this million are the people who do standard work, routine standard work. And they should be examined. I don't know how to check Novikov, for instance. It might take a Supreme Court for this. Later. There'll be only a few professionals of this kind that will be category 7 or 8. But most of them are people of whom we should know. Igor Igorich said that if the cook poisoned his guests in one restaurant, he just left this place and went to another place, and nobody knows it. There were many cases when a person changed jobs, something wrong there, he was blacklisted, but he comes and says, I worked in Metropole, for instance, in Marriott. and everybody believes, and he is hired, and in a week it is discovered he knows nothing. But uh, you can't fire him because of the labor code. You shouldn't have hired him. You should have called to the hotel where he worked before. But nobody bothers to do so, with rare exceptions. Because of the shortage of people, there's a great turnover. We fire people and start looking for somebody else. That's the first thing. Secondly, it's very good that we started to speak about the education sphere. During many years, there was a great gap between secondary and higher education. The vocational training is not valid now. People do not see any horizon before them. Why should they go into vocational training if they have to spend another 6 or 7 years for higher education, and only when he is 30 he can say that he is a specialist? So he listened to the course of lectures, he passed the exam, he had some practical work, and now he comes to the head of some organization and claims. So all people who graduated from the management faculty, they want to be managers. But can you do something? Can you manage people? Did you ever do it before? But this young guy has no practical knowledge. But if he comes with certain background, with qualifications, with practical work confirmed by certain documents, he will just have to enter the site of the Ministry of Labor. You have to look at his CV, at his portfolio, and most of the questions will be lifted. That's the hospitality sector dealing with tourism. But since we're in the sports epoch, it turned out that in addition to tourism, we have congresses and exhibitions, events. What is a stadium? It's a huge concert mechanism where people eat, watch, entertain themselves. They can watch football or a concert. Or great events might take place if it's a covered a stadium with a roof. Any event can take place. But that means different scales. And that involves advertising. You have to collect people, the preparation of congresses and exhibitions, and preparation of a concert event are identical. Hiring personnel is about the same. So sports and entertainment events are either closer to sports or to tourism. I hold a lot of sports events, and I had only one problem. Hopefully it will be corrected now. I come to the Minister of Sports and say, the fans are coming. I come to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Oh, they say, oh, no, it's tourism. Goes elsewhere. I come to Rostourism. Say, the fans are coming. And they send me to the Minister of Sports because they're not coming to us. But the fact that they live here, eat, they have excursions, they spend money here, it doesn't count. But again, it's the same hospitality industry. When we're speaking about agrarian tourism, we have agrarian, gastronomical, whatever you name it. Health improving, that is for the Ministry of Health. Some of the sanitariums or resort homes do not belong to Ministry of Culture, Tourism. You have to classify resort homes to understand where they belong. There are problems which started to become clearer. I started with the linear structure, and we put in standards connected with specialities. When we speak about professional standards, that a person fits into this cube with his competencies, and then it becomes simpler to arrange things. You start with the linear structure with yes and no answers, and if you superimpose economy, now building any company, you can get these competencies, and in the visible future you can have a site or a portal. It will be a huge portal in the Ministry of Labor.
I think there will be we will have some pool of freelancers where you can recruit really qualified personnel for more than 1 week. If you employ someone for 1 week only, you will lose time and money. So I think it will be a big step for the whole business. Yes, we have spoken to our colleagues in the USA. We have studied the issues of sports event management. We know that a stadium is a building which is used for sports events as well as some political gatherings and other events. I asked event managers about their income. So possibly their 62% of all revenues is generated by catering services like selling food products and snacks and beverages. But in Russia, many sports facilities are funded by the state, and while all stadiums in the USA and in Europe are commercial, they earn themselves and they generate revenues. In this case, many people think that sport and stadiums represent some separate business. Besides, each hotel has many conference halls, and many people say it's separate business. But why should it be a separate business? It's a part of hotel life and hotel business. This is a good way for hotels to earn. So, and I know many people think that restaurant owners want to grasp everything. We're not grasping things belonging to other people. We mean that we should work together and share many platforms. Now, what about specialists? There are some students studying hotel business or restaurant business. And what about graduates of these faculties? They may be employed by hotels or restaurants. And that's it. And what about barmen? Barmen Association of Russia trains barmen, and the training course lasts 2 months. They may start earning in 2 months, while students with higher education study for 2 years and graduate as bachelors. So if they study hotel or restaurant business, for 2 years. I think they should cover more subjects and probably acquire several specialties. They may graduate as a multi-skilled specialists with the skills of hotel management, portier skills, and booking specialist, and so on. I received recently a book from a colleague in the Northwest, and it was a book on waiters and cleaners in restaurants. And it was written 20 years ago. I think nothing has changed. This is really a unique situation. I have seen many materials in St. Petersburg archives. I found some really old book of 1857 or something, and specialists wrote about poor qualification of restaurant waiters and other servant and hotel managers. So nothing has changed since the 19th century. You have mentioned that book on waiters, and I can now remember that about 20 years ago, when I was at home and watched TV, I by chance saw an episode from a movie. It was about a mature man visiting a cafe or a restaurant, and he was really offended by the poor service of a waiter. He explained why they were wrong and what they did wrongly. That was a feature film of about 30 or 40 minutes, and it may be used as a manual for students. It was absolutely correct. I travel a lot on business, and I can trace many problems. I think one of the worst problems in professional assessment is lagging behind, is a poor awareness campaign, because we lag behind, and people lack knowledge, and they don't know about many new advanced tools. I think that we should change approach to awareness in our sector, and the awareness campaign should be based on different media, events, conferences, and so on. I have attended many professional events, and there are two very close sectors. It's the hotel business and tourism. Possibly we should merge our efforts in professional assessment. I think the key role of our professional community will be a certification, but of course we will not sell certificates. It's totally unacceptable. Marianna Korolyova knows the current situation with hotels, and people in the regions now are still do not fully understand the problem. They don't recognize problems, and even on the 1st of January 2017, I have received some emails and replied, were you really able to write emails on the 1st of January and to answer the questions of journalists? Absolutely, that's great. And so I received many questions from journalists, and I replied, and I told them all that all hotels and hotel personnel in all cities are to be assessed and certified according to unified standards. But what happened if some hotel does not pass this assessment and exam? Some regions think this hotel is to be closed down. Other regions say we don't know what to do yet. But this is something like an experiment, and we don't know what to do. What happens if the hotel is qualified as irrelevant? What should these people do? And I said they should just feel idiots. If some hotel, because people normally have lots of time to prepare for this certification procedure, and it means that they have lost time. So if the hotel does not take this chance and fails an assessment procedure, it's really a very bad sign. The same applies to personnel assessment. Let's imagine we have 22,000 hotel managers, and I think there are about 3,000 hotels in the cities in our region. And now let's multiply the number of hotels by the number of personnel per each hotel. This will be a huge figure. And many people will be panicking. And it's nothing as compared to the real panic. When we tell hotel managers about possible sanctions for failing an exam. I think now we should not just panic, but create a clear and sound awareness system. I have met many situations with the hotels recently, and people have different approaches to qualification. And some people believed it was nonsense, and it was 2 years ago, and some people think so now, that it's some nonsense which is not needed. I need to convince these people with some very firm reasons. And possibly we should involve all possible sources of information, because many people in the regions lack awareness and information. I agree. I know this problem was mentioned at the meeting of our National Council. But this is a new area for us all. So let's get together and participate. We need to interact with the universities, because they should understand what specialists they will train. We need a common glossary of terms which will be unified for all, because universities and business sometimes use different terms. This is a new challenge for us. We worked slowly on that, and now we should accelerate our efforts. Several years ago, restaurant owners together developed a common standard. But this standard was adjusted and changed by the construction sector, welders or medical people, and so on. Our sector is variable, and there are many rumors. Some people think it's just money cheating, and that some people may earn on this certification procedure. They think but we are not really earning on that, and we don't want anyone to our assessors really get paid, but earning is not our main goal. The main goal is to honestly assess knowledge of and skills of personnel. But there are many subtleties here. Some people think that university teachers must not act as examiners, and only independent experts representing some other hotel should be examining their colleagues. We involve only very experienced consultants with practical experience in relevant sectors, and I think they may really be very useful for candidates for our joint expertise. We should really involve more people from business in this work, and more people with a practical background should become university teachers. But on the other hand, they equally need teaching skills. Otherwise, they will not be able to communicate their knowledge to students. You know that university teachers have poor salaries, and only interested and people do it. They're not doing it for money. Sometimes we try to be provocative because we would like to incentivize people. And sometimes we told the professional community that we were going to close educational programs specializing in tourism. So people got scared, and they started taking some steps. I think, however, that this sector has very good prospects. And when I talk to some entrepreneur and ask professional questions, for instance, about his efforts to assess a new employee in terms of money spent and time spent and so on. And no one ever assessed it. No one ever tried to calculate. Sometimes when cooks are employed and assessed, they are requested to fry meat, and they can do it very well. However, they may have no idea of Japanese cuisine, which is also needed. It means that later on this cook will be fired, but it means lots of time and money wasted. Business in Russia is now transiting to a different stage. It will never work according to the rules of the 90s. It now should be properly regulated, and we should follow the example of our Western colleagues, which are trying to save every kopeck or every cent. Now, let me give the floor to Sergey Mironov. Good afternoon. I represent the sector of restaurants. We certainly need this qualification assessment. Our main problem is the lack of standards. I think we have fewer standards than in other sectors. restaurant business was developing chaotically. There are some weird, random people here, who, like Igor and me. Igor, for instance, used to work as a cook. While I have a legal background, then I worked as a barman, and later I turned into business owner. Now I have my own consulting company. Each of us, and all of us are people with different background, has certain experience. And his work is based on this personal experience. Moreover, he teaches tens or hundreds of people working for his company. It means that our experience becomes crucial. However, our companies have grown now. They are serious but they're very specific, and every company has specific knowledge. If I employ a highly qualified manager from another company, he will have different knowledge. And I think the main impediment in our work is the lack of a unified standard.
We cannot move forward. We're stuck here. Some standardization, some unified qualification will smooth it down. I need that the person coming to work for me knew certain things, and we have to come to an agreement and decide for ourselves what we need. How do we hire managers? I have a large chain now. The personnel manager hires managers from a certain list of restaurants. It's absurd. We can't hire a manager. You might have a person who knows nothing. We cannot hire him. There might be certain restaurants where he should have worked several years, or I should have a personal interview because the personnel head has no competencies to assess this manager. It's the same everywhere. Okay, waiters, it's okay. We'll spend 3 months and train it, and we'll sort it out. But what could we do with other people, with managers, with sommeliers, with managers, with trainers? We hire, for instance, a training manager. It's funny, there's no uniform training system. Well, experimentally, I hired a woman who worked for many years in the hotel, but she doesn't suit me. I made her work hard. She comes back in 2 months, but there's no result. So let's look. The average ticket, did it rise? No, it fell by 100 rubles. There's no result. We should develop certain standards altogether, otherwise we shall stall. Thank you, Sergey. I can tell you from my own feeling of the market. All higher and secondary special educational institutions have reached a certain level, a certain ceilings. Well, they did everything they could do at their workplace. So we achieved everything. Let's move towards each other. Let's set ourselves tasks, and you will train the people accordingly, because we know whom you are going to train. So you have certain requirements to the graduates. We cannot develop any longer like this. When there were few restaurants, you open a restaurant and people are queuing in your restaurant. But now there are no queues to the restaurants. And if you look at the companies, number of companies which are opened and closed, so entrepreneurs' activity will always be here. But we understand that many people lose their money, and this money could be really invested into people or other enterprises. But in order to invest it properly, people should have knowledge. Thank you very much. We have 20 minutes left. Please, if you have any questions to our speakers, it will be our pleasure to answer them. No microphones. So, a professor in the Corporate Academy, ING. So we teach them for 3 years. That's a lot of problem with human material. 3 years ago, in order to hire 30 people, we had to interview 100 people in order to, well, make them understand the German skills. It took them, I don't know, who are you asking? How harmonize your scores with the corporate education system like the dual system in Germany? They have a wonderful system. The Chamber of Trade and Commerce invites independent experts. We do the same. We have a lot of chain hotels, chain catering places. How do you cooperate with them? Or will you take their scoring into account? So they pass their own exams, but they will have to confirm their knowledge. Yes, you answered your question. Colleagues, at the end of last year, at the session of the Expert Council in Education, we discussed amendment to the law on education about a baseline faculties, baseline chairs. You know this amendment. And the experts did not pay attention to the following. There was a wording on the basis of educational and other organizations. And you should pay attention to these other organizations. And we made some amendments into the law which specify it. This amendment has been done so that other organizations should come first, and only then it will be followed by educational organizations. Actually, that's the system of shaping these requirements, standard requirements, to the owner, to the educational organization, because frequently, and you put it correctly, do you know whom we have to work with? Do you know what kind of school leavers we get? So what is your required minimum of scores? So if it is so, for instance, you can go there. And if your scoring is higher or lower, you can go elsewhere. It's difficult because the educational system has been set up like this. It has been like this starting from the years 1917. Therefore, we have been a period till 2020. Some people think that it will start in the year 20. We have to finish everything by the year 2020. And these baseline chairs should radically change this approach. You were speaking about general managers' standards in a hotel. If the law has a requirement, does that exist, a requirement of a higher professional education, it just deprive the person the ability to go up. You might have a higher education without professional education, or you can be a professional but without higher education. But we answered this question. There is no objective to force somebody to have retrainment. We're perfectly aware that physically it is impossible. But as a follow-up to your question about corporate standards, we also want, well, over there, the employer spends money to upgrade the skills of his workers. But we too want to cut losses. For instance, if this money is spent by the employer or by the applicant, he has to pay for himself. 15 years ago, we discussed it with Mr. Pachinok. You can't put it all on the employer, but there are things we can do. For instance, there is a certain standard about something to be done, but the basis is sanitary and hygiene, labor safety, labor protection, fire safety. It's important for us today for one simple reason. I don't want to be responsible for a cook who understands that you can't put the pan on the floor, that the door to the kitchen should be closed, and they keep them open all the time. They do not want to comply with certain rules. I understand this. But we are not speaking about whether they want it or not. We are one team. We should create conditions for these people and tell them that they can make a career. They can. I can say honestly, when they came, I set ourselves the task. I went to the Plekhanov Institute and I said, in 10 years, I will be a director. I came from the army. I was assistant to the cook in Budapest restaurant. I graduated from a special course and got a certain degree. 8 years I worked as a cook. I know everything. I'm an economist of public catering. I graduated from the economic faculty. But we can collect knowledge, and when you come to the employer and say, I know this and that and that, and therefore I want to get more, then you would pay to somebody else. I understand what is business, and I'll bring you more money. I like Sergey's article describing how he hired a person who taught him how to work and how much he should work and what will be his working hours, because he worked somewhere before. Colleagues, do you have more questions? A small question. Who will you address it? To you. Okay. And maybe to Sergey. You were saying about knowledge, about the preparation of managers. Business needs people with skills, people who will come to business and will immediately bring the result the owner hopes to get. How do the centers for evaluation of qualifications, how will they assess this kind of training and skills? You were speaking about managers or linear personnel. Well, managers also should also have skills. We had a conflict situation in this case with education when we kept saying, you needn't invent the bicycle. We have the experience of Western countries where hospitality industry is well developed, and we understand that when we look at the structure of their training, we see that they have a lot of time dedicated to practical work. And we said, let's increase the practice hours, well, 30 to 50. No, let's leave it as it is, 30. So some educational institutions are very reluctant to do so. It's very difficult. Businessmen do not want to hire people for 2-week training, for instance. Or if he comes for a season, for 4 months, that's something else. But this will overturn the legislation in the training sphere. We can have our own programs. Others find it difficult. And we started with education. We want to try and understand how it can be done. There are standards. For instance, to reconfirm the skill and qualification, a person should have a certain record of work. Otherwise, he cannot take the exam. In the training system, he will have a certain record of work, and at the exam of the educational institution, he can reconfirm his qualification. Thus, he will start issuing a result. If we are speaking about education for money, that will bring money to the people who paid for it, or whose parents paid for the child, the student himself. We just keep saying, let's pay, and what will happen afterwards? If the education is to be paid for, it should bring money. They have theoretical and practical exams. Situational questions, yes, naturally. So you know it all. Let me add. It all exists in the corporate systems, in major hotels. It exists in chain structures, in the restaurant business. Everything exists. You understand what you mean? Come here, bring to us, bring your piece of knowledge into our common system. A manager who successfully passed the exam or something like this. There are interviews, for instance. For beginners, it will be convenient for me even at the level of personnel head when it is clear that he hires a person with a certain qualification. After the personnel department, he will come to me. But after the preliminary selection is helpful because for me to have a good interview will require 2 hours. Otherwise, I am not prepared to do it. I'm the prorector for supplementary education of a private institute. For a long time, I was involved in practice. Each of you now says what they want to get. You want to get a specialist attuned to your business. I can hear it. And the question is that when students come to practice, and the way employers react to hiring students, it's non-ambiguous. Students are not attractive to owners. They interfere. Out of 10 companies, there's only one where there was an enthusiasm who worked with students. Students fulfill simplest operations. I'm a financier by profession, and I taught financials. It's a catastrophe. Do you think students could be employed at other positions? They are not allowed to do anything, just shifting papers from one place to another. I do not case it's very difficult in your case. Owners are not interested. As an employer, I will answer this question like this. What is the question? The question is that it doesn't matter. So many of 50 units is the quality of practical work, of training. Are businessmen, are owners ready to work with students? Everything is simple. You should understand where the student is sent for practical work. You should speak to the restaurator and understand whether he will teach them. For instance, I hire on students every year and they work with them. This year I will take 60 and I work with them and they'll be good workers. Well, it's an exception because it was the agreement. These are my students and I'm interested in them. But therefore I work there because I want to teach students for myself. There are many restaurants like this. You just have to come to terms to them and they will hire students. Only 1 in 10. But that's enough. 1 out of 10 is enough. It's clear that this question is quite difficult. You cannot just come and force somebody to hire students. At all the Soviet times, the culinary school, for instance, was sort of attached to a restaurant, and where students were, entrusted to peel potatoes, and then they told them, you can go home, okay. So what is the interest of the hotelier to have a person for 2 weeks only and explain things to him. But if he comes for 4 months, for a season, the institutes who were prepared to send people for a longer period, we were prepared to work of them 3 or even 4 years ago. So we said them, if you want to have practice, change your schedule.
Well, colleagues, I'm Nikita Trofimov, Vice President of FRIO Association of Restaurateurs and Hoteliers. I cooperate with many international colleagues in building independent assessment. I think the two keywords for us should be independent as an adjective and prospects as a noun. And many universities now treat our standards with mistrust. In the recent 15 years, however, other countries have building trust and confidence in their professional standards. And I think we should a unified common platform incorporating business, companies, and universities. In this case, there will be no mistrust and no problems related to certificates or knowledge. All students will be properly tested, and universities will trust hotel experts and vice versa. And yes, really, hotels and other companies will trust graduates of universities. Before we build the unified professional standards, we should create the structure, the national structure of professional qualification, and this will make the whole system properly work. As I have mentioned the second word, which is prospects. Recently, we had a big gathering of specialists from 17 countries. They have briefed the audience on their qualification building capacity, and they all specialize in hospitality. In the recent 8 years, they have gathered common standards and a qualification capacity based on new technologies, innovations, ITs, biotech, and so on. And soon, the whole sector will change completely, and some professions will be lost, and there will be new professions and new competences. These new technologies will soon be introduced, and it will be a part of our daily work. Some countries, like Turkey, have already retrained teachers and prepared new professional goals for their sector. And now teachers have been retrained, so they have introduced some new elements in their training programs. For instance, many restaurants and hotels will now have robots working in the kitchen, and this is taught to students at universities. In order to go hand in hand with the changes, we should make forecasts, and these forecasts should be reflected in training university programs. In this case, we will be able to catch up with the rapid changes, and also the companies will will have a better contact with universities, and they should use all communication channels, including social networks. And finally, many people now say that Europe is experiencing a disastrous time because of the incoming refugees. However, this is not really a huge burden for Europe because this is potential workforce. Certainly, many people may employ them after they are trained. But on the other hand, this will breed some unemployment among native people. And unless you follow all these changes, you will have no students. And universities will lose their audience and jobs in future. I deal with tourism and event-based tourism. I'm Vadim Prasov, and I represent Alliance Hotel Management Company. I think we should enhance cooperation between universities and practical specialists working for hotels and other tourist organizations. So I have a question. Are there now chairs of hotel management? And do they interact with hotels? Yes, we're working on that. And I think we are now at the final stage of work. We are close to completing it. But colleagues, is there a relevant section in the Federation of Hotel and Restaurant Owners? Well, we're working on that now. And also now we are creating a new consortium or a sector-based university, and it will include chairs that you have mentioned. They will be flexible. It means that any students will be able to combine several qualifications. He will gradually develop a personal portfolio and a personal set of skills. Let me give you another example. You know that many students like solving tasks from looking at the answer. Once they know the answer, they develop a solution for an equation or another task. So this is a good way to work, and probably we should start with the end. We should start with these chairs. They will be certified. They will be certified, and they will be certified by our consortium or the Council on Professional Qualification in Hospitality. Recently, I spoke to one of our colleagues about that. He works in Sochi, and they have a university with the Department of Tourism. Besides, there are several resort and centers, and some of them are sent to this resort hotel as interns. And now they are scared to send their students there, because when students return to university after their internship, they tell lecturers that their university is good for nothing, because they don't give them any valuable practical knowledge, and everything that they are told at the university is wrong. That's why I think we need to establish a proper dialogue between universities and hotels. We should not accuse each other, and we should we should be, otherwise there will be a conflict, and we will constantly accuse university for wrong training. I agree with you, and thank you for this comment. When this hospitality sector was only starting, we established our first contacts. And initially, Moscow Department of Education required a permit from the Department of Consumer Market. And we needed special permits for each meeting. We needed a special permit to meet the teachers of cooking schools. But now the situation has changed. We are now having a roundtable discussion. We have many discussions. And I hope we will develop a roadmap together. In fact, this is a delayed revolution. I recently read about many corporations like Rambler search system or Google. They will be involved in booking programs. I mean hotel and air tickets booking. But let's you can see that companies are merging, and if we do not develop, we will be replaced from the market by our European competitors. That's why we should catch up with current standards. You have mentioned certification programs and certifying educational programs as well. What's happening at the moment? I will not talk about hospitality, but what about sport? Now, the sports sector is actively retraining their personnel in ultra-high speed. And many people are retrained. This happens very fast. Many people pay for that. For instance, one of the colleagues showed to me a very strange certificate with signed by some unknown organization. I can't really read this acronym, and the course cost 15,000 rubles. He paid first for the course, and later on he received the certificate. And the course lasted 3 months, including 520 academic hours. And I asked my colleague how it all happened. So he received lots of books and other material. He by email, and he was supposed to read all that and later on write a final work, starting from final paper. And this final paper was to be at least 5 pages in volume. So I had first education diploma, certifying that I was a chemist. And they received it, confirmed. I hope that in 2 or 3 months I will receive another professional certificate, another document certifying that I was a qualified manager in sport. However, now, as you know, qualification is quite trendy. And the Russian Standards Committee has developed a new standard of quality standard in management, and I was awarded a certain qualification which stated that I was a qualified manager of sports buildings and events. So I think that all educational programs should be certified. I'm sure that that particular program was not certified, and it was not certified by the Expert Council on Professional Qualification. However, there's no specialized council in the sports sector, but restaurant and hotel owners should certainly have certified educational programs, and they should all be certified by Russian Ministry of Education and Science, and all other documents are fakes. I'm sure that this diploma or certificate that I will eventually receive is a fake. However, I may be employed by stadiums and other sports facilities. Here's another document. It was awarded by the Association of Fighters. This is all a very big danger. Yes, we know that there are many crooks now. This danger certainly exists. There are many concerns about it. We know that quite recently, some years ago, people could buy diplomas in subways. But now our time is up. And if you have no more questions, let me all greet you on the so-called Old New Year, which is a unique Russian holiday. However, it's a terrible day today because it's Friday the 13th. So have a good weekend and goodbye.